I adjusted my simple black dress in the mirror of my penthouse apartment, deliberately choosing the plainest outfit in my closet. The standard issue MacBook I'd bought specifically for family visits sat on my desk, its screen displaying a few basic digital art pieces. Nothing too impressive, nothing that would hint at the empire I'd built. The invitation to the Morrison family reunion sat on my kitchen counter, its gold embossing catching the morning light. Hosted, as always, at my sister Diana's mansion in the Hamptons. Join us for a celebration of family success, the card proclaimed, making me wonder if they'd ever celebrate any of mine. My phone buzzed, a message from my CFO about our latest acquisition. Contracts are ready, Maya. Morrison Tech's board just approved the sale. They have no idea Dreamscape Animation Studios is the buyer. I smiled, tucking the phone into my purse. 10 years of carefully hiding my success was about to pay off in the most satisfying way possible. The drive to the Hamptons gave me time to reflect on how I'd gotten here. Growing up in the Morrison family meant one thing: business was everything. My father, James Morrison, had built Morrison Tech from the ground up, turning it into a respected name in enterprise software. My sister Diana had followed perfectly in his footsteps, getting her MBA from Harvard and rising through the company ranks. And then there was me, the disappointment, the daughter who spent her time diddling in notebooks instead of studying business strategies. Art isn't a career, Maya, my father would say, his voice heavy with disapproval. It's a hobby at best, a distraction at worst. I remember the day I told them I was majoring in animation at art school instead of accepting my place at Wharton. The silence in our dining room was deafening. "You're throwing your life away," Diana had said, while our mother quietly dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, as if I'd just announced a terminal illness. What they didn't know, what I never told them, was that I'd also been taking night classes in business administration. While they thought I was wasting time at art school, I was actually building the foundation for something bigger than they could imagine. My first animated short film won a student competition. The prize wasn't much, $5,000 and some industry recognition, but it was enough to start. I used the money to hire 2 other artists, working out of my tiny apartment to create content for small businesses. That's when I discovered something interesting. The corporate world was desperate for good animation. Training videos, marketing materials, product demonstrations. There was a huge market for high-quality digital content, and very few studios that could deliver it professionally. Within 2 years, my little team had grown to 15 people. We incorporated as Dreamscape Animation Studios, with me using my middle name, Phoenix, on all the paperwork. Maya Phoenix, not Maya Morrison, became the name behind what would grow into one of the most innovative animation studios in the country. The family never knew, of course. To them, I was still just Maya, the struggling artist who occasionally sold a digital piece online or did freelance work for local businesses. Every time they asked about my career, I gave them just enough information to maintain the illusion. Diana's mansion came into view, its manicured lawns and perfect landscaping exactly what you'd expect from someone who measured success in square footage. Cards lined the circular driveway, all luxury brands, all making my deliberately modest Honda Civic look even more out of place. I parked at the far end of the drive, taking a moment to check my reflection again. I'd left my designer clothes at home, worn minimal makeup, kept my hair simple. Everything about my appearance had been carefully curated to maintain the image my family had of me. The struggling artist, the family disappointment. Maya. My mother's voice carried across the driveway as I approached the house. We were starting to wonder if you'd make it. I returned her air kiss, noting how her eyes quickly scanned my outfit, probably calculating its cost and finding it appropriately underwhelming. Traffic, I explained, following her into the house, and I had to finish a commission. Oh, someone actually paid for your drawings? The pause before drawings was subtle but deliberate. If she only knew that just yesterday, I'd signed off on a $50 million contract with a major tech company for a series of animated training programs. Instead, I smiled sheepishly. Just a small business website. Nothing exciting. The house was exactly as I remembered it from previous gatherings. Ostentatiously decorated, designed to showcase the Morrison family's success. Photos lined the walls. Diana at her Harvard graduation, Diana with the Morrison Tech Board, Diana on the cover of Business Weekly. The single photo of me was from high school, before I'd disappointed everyone by choosing art over business. The great room was already full of relatives when we entered. Conversations about stocks, mergers, and market trends filled the air. My cousin James was holding court near the fireplace, talking about his hedge fund's latest acquisition. Aunt Patricia was showing off photos of her son's new startup. And there, in the center of it all, was Diana, perfectly coiffed in what I recognized as a $12,000 Oscar de la Renta dress. "Maya," she called out, her voice carrying that familiar note of condescension. "I'm so glad you could take time away from your art to join us." She embraced me briefly, careful not to wrinkle her dress. "You look," she paused, searching for a diplomatic word, "comfortable." "Thanks," I said, pulling at my target dress self-consciously, playing the part she expected. "Your dress is beautiful." "Oscar de la Renta," she confirmed, smoothing the fabric. "A little celebration for closing our latest acquisition. Morrison Tech just bought out our biggest competitor in the enterprise software space." I bit back a smile. If only she knew that in less than 24 hours, Morrison Tech itself would belong to my little art studio. "That's wonderful," I said. "Things must be going well." "Better than ever," she beamed. "In fact, I was just telling everyone about our next big move. We're branching into digital content creation, animations for corporate training, marketing, that sort of thing." My heart skipped a beat. This was exactly why I'd moved to acquire Morrison Tech. They were planning to enter my territory, potentially becoming a major competitor. Instead, they were about to become part of my empire. Not that Diana knew that yet. "Animation?" I asked innocently. "That sounds complicated." Diana laughed, the sound carrying across the room. "Oh, Maya, it's all business strategy. The actual drawing part is just technical work. We'll hire people for that. People like," she gestured vaguely in my direction. Well, Other relatives had drifted over, drawn by Diana's laugh. "Still drawing cartoons, Maya?" my cousin James asked, not bothering to hide his smirk. My fund is always looking for administrative assistants if you want a real job." "Thank you," I said quietly. "But I'm doing okay with my art." "Okay?" Diana raised an eyebrow. "Is that why you're still driving that old Honda? Still living in that tiny apartment?" They had no idea that I owned the entire building where my tiny apartment was located, or that my car collection included a Porsche and 2 Teslas. The Honda was just for family visits. "I get by," I shrugged. "Not everyone needs a mansion." "Getting by isn't the same as succeeding." My father's voice came from behind me. I turned to find him watching me with that familiar look of disappointment. Diana's latest deal is worth more than you'll probably make in your entire life drawing pictures. I felt a flash of anger but pushed it down. In less than a day, they would all learn just how wrong they were. The contracts were signed, the press release written. By this time tomorrow, Maya Phoenix would be revealed as the CEO of Dreamscape Animation Studios and the new owner of Morrison Tech. But for now, I just smiled and excused myself to get a drink. Let them have their moment of superiority. Let them believe what they'd always believed about me. After all, revenge is an art form too. The family reunion dragged on into evening, each hour bringing a new opportunity for my relatives to remind me of my perceived failures. I kept checking my phone, watching as messages from my executive team confirmed that everything was in place for tomorrow's announcement. Press release approved by legal. New York Times exclusive secured. Board transition documents ready for signing. I was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the sunset over Diana's perfectly manicured garden. When my father approached, he held a glass of his favorite scotch, the same brand I had a case of in my office, though he didn't know that. "Maya," he said, his voice carrying that perpetual note of disappointment, "your mother and I have been talking." I braced myself. These conversations never ended well. "Diana's new digital content division will need artists," he continued. "Basic level stuff. Nothing too creative. But it would be steady work, benefits, a real salary." He emphasized real, as if what I did wasn't real work. "She's willing to give you a chance, despite your limited business experience." I took a sip of my champagne to hide my smile. If he only knew that my company's annual revenue was nearly triple what Morrison Tech made in digital services. "Thank you, Dad, but I'm okay with my freelance work." He sighed heavily. "Maya, you're 32 years old. Don't you think it's time to stop playing around with drawings and join the real world? Look at your sister. She's made something of herself." Through the window's reflection, I could see Diana holding court among our relatives, probably sharing another story of her business triumphs. She'd always been good at that, making sure everyone knew exactly how successful she was. "I know you think art is just playing around," I said carefully, "but there's more to it than you realize." "Is there?" He gestured at my simple dress, my unassuming appearance, because from where I stand, all I see is wasted potential. You could have gone to Wharton, could have been part of Morrison Tech's legacy. Instead, you chose to throw it all away for what? Digital doodles. The words stung, even after all these years, even knowing what I knew. Actually, I started, almost ready to tell him everything, but my phone buzzed again. A message from my COO. "Morrison Tech board members all confirmed for tomorrow's 9 a.m. meeting. They have no idea what's coming." I swallowed my confession. Less than 12 hours. I could wait that long. "Actually what?" my father prompted. "Nothing," I said. "You're right. I made my choices." He shook his head and walked away, leaving me to watch the final rays of sun disappear behind the trees. Across the room, I heard Diana's laugh ring out again. "Maya's always been different," she was saying to our Aunt Patricia. "Some people just aren't cut out for real success. At least she's finally accepting the hand up we're offering." I checked my watch. 7:30 p.m. In less than 14 hours, everything would change. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of subtle jabs and condescending offers of help. Cousin James offered to teach me basic business accounting. Aunt Patricia suggested her daughter could help me build a proper website for my little art business. Even my mother got in on it, quietly showing me job listings for graphic design positions at local marketing firms. Through it all, I maintained my facade of quiet resignation, playing the role of the struggling artist they all expected me to be. But inside, I was counting down the hours. Finally, as the party wound down, Diana cornered me by the coat check. "I hope you'll seriously consider Dad's offer," she said, her voice dripping with folk concern. "The position wouldn't be anything too challenging. Just basic artwork for corporate presentations, employee handbooks, that sort of thing. We'd start you at an entry-level salary, of course, but it's better than whatever you're making now." I thought about my penthouse office overlooking Central Park, about the team of over 200 artists and animators who worked for me, about the groundbreaking projects we were developing that would revolutionize digital animation. "I'll think about it," I said. "Don't think too long," she advised. "Once we announce our expansion into digital content next week, we'll have plenty of qualified applicants. I'm only offering because you're family." I nodded, accepting my cope from the attendant. "Speaking of announcements, will you be at the office tomorrow?" "Of course," she said proudly. 9 a.m. sharp. We have a major meeting with our mystery buyers. Some big animation studio is interested in partnering with us. She smirked. "See what happens when you think bigger than just drawing pictures." "Good luck with the meeting," I said, turning to leave. "Maya," she called after me. "That outfit you're wearing, if you do decide to take the job, you'll need to dress more professionally. Appearance matters in the corporate world." I looked down at my intentionally modest dress, thinking of the closet full of designer clothes waiting at home. I'll keep that in mind. Driving home, I finally let myself feel the full weight of what was about to happen. 10 years of hiding my success, of letting them believe I was a failure, all leading to this moment. Back in my penthouse, I hung up my struggling artist costume and changed into silk pajamas that cost more than Diana's precious Oscar de la Renta dress. My real laptop, not the prop I took to family functions, was open on my desk, displaying the final acquisition documents for Morrison Tech. A message popped up from my assistant. "Everything set for tomorrow. Car will pick you up at 8:30 a.m. The Morrison Tech board doesn't know you're attending the meeting." I poured myself a glass of scotch, the same brand my father had been drinking, and walked out onto my terrace. The city lights sparkled below, a canvas of electric stars. Somewhere out there, Diana was probably still basking in her imagined triumph, telling her husband about her plans to give her struggling artist sister a chance at a real career. My phone rang, the private line only my executive team had access to. It was Marcus, my COO. "Maya," he said when I answered, "just wanted to confirm you're ready for tomorrow. Once we make the announcement, everything changes. Your family? They'll finally see the truth," I finished. "All of it. Are you sure you want to do it this way? We could send someone else to the meeting. Keep your identity private a little longer." I thought about my father's disappointment, Diana's condescension, all the years of being treated as less than because I chose art over their version of success. "No," I said firmly. "I want to be there. I want to see their faces when they realize who they're really dealing with." After hanging up, I stayed on the terrace for a long time, thinking about the journey that had brought me here. Every dismissive comment, every patronizing offer of help, every family gathering where I'd had to bite my tongue, it had all led to this moment. Tomorrow, they would learn that the daughter they dismissed as a failure had built something bigger than they could imagine. Tomorrow, they would understand that success doesn't always look the way they think it should. Tomorrow, Maya, the struggling artist, would be revealed as Maya Phoenix, CEO of Dreamscape Animation Studios and the new owner of Morrison Tech. I smiled, raising my glass to the city lights. The art of deception was about to become a masterpiece of revelation. The Morrison Tech boardroom looked exactly as I remembered it from childhood visits, all mahogany and leather, old money and older pride. I stood in the private elevator, wearing a custom camel suit that cost more than 6 months of the entry-level salary Diana had condescendingly offered me. "Ready, Miss Phoenix?" Marcus asked beside me. We'd worked together since the beginning. When Dreamscape was just 3 people in my apartment, I checked my reflection in the elevator's mirrored walls. Gone was the carefully cultivated image of the struggling artist. Today, I looked every inch the CEO I truly was. "Ready?" I confirmed, just as the elevator doors opened to the executive floor. Diana was already in the boardroom, speaking animatedly to the other board members. My father sat at the head of the table, looking imperial in his custom suit. Neither of them noticed me at first, too busy discussing their plans for the future. A future they didn't realize was about to change dramatically. "The Dreamscape representatives should be here any minute," Diana was saying. "Once we finalize this partnership, Morrison Tech will dominate the digital content space." "Actually," I said, stepping into the room, "there's been a slight change of plans." The room fell silent. Diana's mouth dropped open, her professional composure cracking for the first time I could remember. "Maya?" My father stood up, confusion evident on his face. "What are you doing here?" "This is a private board meeting." I smiled, placing my briefcase on the table. "I know exactly what this meeting is. In fact, I called it." "This is ridiculous," Diana snapped, recovering her voice. "Security won't be necessary," Marcus said smoothly, stepping forward. "Miss Phoenix has every right to be here." "Phoenix?" Diana's eyes narrowed. "Her name is Morrison." "Actually," I said, opening my briefcase and beginning to distribute documents, "Maya Phoenix is my professional name. The name I used to build Dreamscape Animation Studios from the ground up. The name that's about to become very familiar to everyone in this room." The blood drained from my father's face as he looked down at the documents I'd placed in front of him. Acquisition papers, final sale contracts, press releases ready to go. This is impossible," he whispered. "Is it?" I took my place at the opposite end of the table. "Let me tell you a story about a girl who loved art and business equally. Who took night classes in business administration while attending art school. Who saw an opportunity in the market for high-quality corporate animation and built a company that now grosses over $100 million annually." Diana was frantically flipping through the papers, her hands shaking. You're Maya Phoenix, the CEO of Dreamscape?" "The same," I confirmed. "The company you've been trying to partner with, it's mine, has been since I founded it 10 years ago, right around the time you all decided I was throwing my life away." But you're just an artist," Diana stammered. "You live in a tiny apartment. You drive a Honda." I couldn't help but laugh. "I own the building where that tiny apartment is located. The Honda is just what I drive to family functions. Would you have preferred I showed up in my Porsche? Given you one more thing to assume I couldn't afford." My father was still staring at the documents, particularly the page showing Dreamscape's current market valuation. "All this time," he murmured. "All this time," I agreed. "Every family gathering where you mocked my career choice. every condescending offer of help, every comparison to Diana's real success. I was building something bigger than Morrison Tech could ever dream of being. Why? Diana demanded. Why hide it? Why let us think? Because you never would have accepted it. I cut her off. You would have tried to take control, to make it part of the Morrison Tech empire. You would have turned my vision into just another division of your company. I needed to build this my way, on my own terms. I stood up, smoothing my designer suit. And now, as of 9 a.m. this morning, Dreamscape Animation Studios is the proud owner of Morrison Tech. We'll be restructuring the company, focusing on innovation rather than tradition. Diana, your position as CEO will be eliminated, though you're welcome to interview for a role in our creative department. Father, you'll be transitioned to an advisory role until your retirement next month. The silence in the room was absolute. Even the other board members, who usually deferred to my father in everything, sat in stunned silence. You can't do this, Diana finally whispered. Actually, I can and I have. The board approved the sale last week, though they didn't know I was the buyer. The contracts are signed. The press release goes out in... I checked my watch. Approximately 10 minutes. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. The New York Times exclusive was live. Art meets tech. Dreamscape Animation Studios acquires Morrison Tech in surprise deal. CEO Maya Phoenix reveals plans for digital innovation. I turned my phone around, showing them the headline. By the way, Diana, about that entry-level position you offered me yesterday, I'll have to decline. I'm afraid I'm overqualified. The next hour was a blur of legal formalities, shell-shocked board members signing transition documents, and my father sitting in stunned silence at the head of the table that was no longer his to command. As the board members filed out, leaving just my family, Diana finally found her voice again. All these years, she said, her voice hollow, you let us believe you were struggling. You let us pity you. No, I corrected her. You chose to pity me. You chose to see what you expected to see. The failed artist, the family disappointment. You never once considered that I might be capable of more. My father stood up slowly, looking older than I had ever seen him. Mina, save it, I said, but not unkindly. I didn't do this for revenge. I did it because it was the right business decision. Dreamscape needs Morrison Tech's infrastructure to expand, and Morrison Tech needs our innovation to survive in the modern market. I gathered my things, preparing to leave. There will be a family dinner tonight at Le Bernardin to formally announce the merger. I trust you'll both be there. They nodded mutely. Good. Oh, and Diana? I paused at the door. To dress professionally. Appearance matters in the corporate world, after all. The ride back to my office was quiet. Marcus knew me well enough to let me process everything in silence. It wasn't until we were in my penthouse office, overlooking the city, that he spoke. Feel good? I looked out at the city, thinking about the path that had led me here. It feels right, like finally finishing a painting I've been working on for 10 years. My phone was flooding with messages. Relatives who had suddenly seen the news, who were just now discovering that the struggling artist they dismissed was actually one of the most successful CEOs in the digital media space. Cousin James, who had offered to teach me basic accounting, had already sent 3 messages asking if we could discuss potential synergies with his hedge fund. Aunt Patricia, who'd suggested her daughter help me build a website, was calling repeatedly. Even my mother had texted, Why didn't you tell us? I left them all unanswered. They'd have their chance to talk at dinner tonight. Instead, I opened my laptop and began working on the speech I would give to Morrison Tech's employees tomorrow. They needed to know that while leadership was changing, their jobs were secure, as long as they were willing to embrace innovation and creativity. A final message came through from Diana. I need to understand. Please, can we talk before dinner? I thought about it for a long moment before replying. Come by my office, the real one. Top floor of the Phoenix building on 5th Avenue. The security desk will be expecting you. An hour later, Diana stood in my office, looking distinctly uncomfortable. Her eyes darted around the space, taking in the original artwork on the walls, the view of Central Park, the clear evidence of success she'd never noticed before. Why? She asked simply. Why what? Why did I hide my success? Why did I buy Morrison Tech? Why did I let you all believe I was a failure? All of it. I gestured for her to sit, because you and Dad never would have accepted my success on my terms. You would have tried to make it fit your definition of achievement. Board meetings, quarterly reports, traditional corporate structure. But Dreamscape succeeded precisely because it wasn't traditional. We innovate. We create. We do things differently. But we're family, she protested. We could have helped. Like you helped yesterday. I raised an eyebrow, offering me an entry-level position out of pity. That's not help, Diana. That's control. She had the grace to look embarrassed. I never knew, never even suspected, because you never looked. None of you did. You saw what you expected to see, the artistic sister who couldn't cut it in the real world. You never considered that art and business might not be mutually exclusive. Diana was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the city view. What happens now? Now we move forward. Morrison Tech becomes part of Dreamscape, and we build something new together. If you're willing to learn, to adapt, there could be a place for you here. But not as CEO. Not anymore. She nodded slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. You're not just my little sister anymore, are you? I never was just your little sister, I corrected her. You just never saw who I really was. That evening, as I stood addressing our extended family at Le Bernardin, I saw something I'd never seen before in their eyes. Respect. Not pity, not condescension, but genuine respect. To new beginnings, I raised my glass, and to the art of success. Later that night, back in my penthouse, I opened my old sketchbook, the one I'd carried through art school, filled with the early concepts that would become Dreamscape's first projects. On the final page, I'd written a quote that had guided me through all these years. The greatest art lies in hiding your mastery until the perfect moment of revelation. I smiled, closing the book. My masterpiece was finally complete.